All right, welcome out to the weekly Mastermind, everyone. And I guess this week we got a recommendation for a topic on how to get butts in seats. And I think this can pertain to multiple areas, like whether or not it's a class. Filling your classes or getting people to attend events. We have a number of events coming up. For example, every second Saturday in Utah, we have the Edge monthly business training in Utah, and then we have periodic regional events. For example, last week or so, we had the Idaho Edge regional event, and coming up in the fall, we have the Edge Global Conference, which will be a 2-day event, which, by the way, was just moved from locations. Instead of being in Farmington, it will now be at the Radisson Hotel in downtown Salt Lake. So those are some Edge events that are coming up, and so filling events is one of the primary skills of a network marketer. And so
kind of the skill.
Yeah, it's kind of the skill. I guess if you can't get people present to hear a presentation of any kind, whether it's training or boot camps or
monthly trainings are a big deal.
Monthly trainings.
And you know who's going diamond when you show up to their monthly training and it's full.
Right. And monthly trainings are, I think, very underappreciated or underutilized.
I don't think people realize how good they are.
Right.
I don't think they realize how important they are. Is better.
Right. Well, I think some of what's happened, is that because we have a class model, I think sometimes people it kind of has maybe subverted a little bit the power of actually attending an event. Itself, but I think if people are funneling, like if you're learning how to get your classes full, and then you're funneling that to make sure that those people are then being plugged into events, then that's the way to keep your community alive, I think. So let's open this up to the mastermind. What are some of your strategies or tactics for making sure that your events, whether they're classes or monthly trainings, how are you getting people to attend? Why
don't we focus on classes initially? I think that's, you know what I mean? Because here's the question. I would like to get everybody's ideas on effective class planning and inviting. So I think if we were to say, okay, so how do we have a successful class? That's the first thing, and then let's, because I actually think they're two different.
Right.
They're different animals, frankly.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay, so class. How do you prepare your classes to make sure that you get maximum attendance?
Yeah, how do you get butts in seats?
And you can press *5* will raise your hand. The ideas are flowing.
Everybody's like,
I
don't know.
That's a great question. So I know some of them scrolling down here, seeing some names of leaders that I know are really good at getting people present. And so let's hear your secrets. *5* will raise your hand.
I think everybody's wanting that direction from you and I.
I'm not tired of our voices yet. Well, let's see. That would take it off topic. I was trying to.
So I can start it. So
Okay.
So basically, if you want to have great attendance, and honestly, this actually goes back to even when we were first starting. Mm-hmm. In areas where doTERRA wasn't necessarily present. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes, I think that people back then, they I actually think when we got started, people would actually say it was saturated because all of the activity was happening here. So we were all fighting with each other over the same people. But the thing that worked, my sister, Heidi, she was always getting fantastic attendance. And she goes, yeah, it's because of the amount of touches that happened to get a person to the event. And she had a rule of 5 touches. Mm-hmm. And what that meant was that she goes, okay, so I'm going to call the person up. That's 1 touch. Invite them to the class. Then I'm going to go over and give them a physical invitation for the class. Ask them if it's okay if I send them a text and email reminder. So she'd send them an email with the details of the class, a text message reminder the day of the class, and I think even like an hour or 2 before the class started. And I think she had one more in there, but that's with each person. She was doing that,
right.
And as a result, her classes were always booked. And so, I think where people really fall down is when they call people up and they say, "Yeah, I'm going to come," and then the person
and then there's no follow
and there's no follow through.
Right.
And it's and the fact of the matter is that we all need multiple reminders to make sure that we even attend.
Right, and a lot of times it's a matter of priority too with the prospect. And if it's not important to you, for example, then it's certainly not going to be important to them.
Sampling was also something she would do, and it wasn't necessarily for an ailment. It was sampling to get the person interested enough to come. So she would call them up, ask them if they'd be open to coming, then say, "Can I bring you by a sample, like an oil sample and an invitation?" And she would give them like a wild orange. Mm-hmm. Even a drop of breathe, like she just people would have them put out their hands and just breathe it, or peppermint or something with like orange is fantastic for that. Mm-hmm. But she would give them something that would hook them,
right.
Like, hey,
right.
There's more where that came from, that type of idea. And the people who I've seen that struggle are the ones that call people up. Oh, and you have to invite a lot. Like, I think that people like call five people, and then they go, "Yeah, I called everybody I knew." But it's like, no,
right. Or you walked outside and asked one neighbor or something like that, or you distributed flyers throughout the neighborhood, or all those ineffective.
But
things.
I put out a Facebook invite, and
right?
You're like, no,
put it on Facebook.
No.
300 people were invited.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I flew to Colorado for one of those. I invited 150 people. Got their no-show. And then we're like, "What'd you do?" "Well, we just walked through the neighborhood and put flyers on everybody."
We put flyers on the door. Like,
no, of course no one came.
Hey, no, but if you're talking about the greatest no-shows of all time, you got to talk about your Ireland trip.
Well, that one's probably been mentioned like 300,000 times.
No, but it's fantastic. The fact that you flew across the globe to a no-show, and then when you actually got there, didn't she say something like, "Yeah, we really didn't even."
Yeah, they didn't even try.
They didn't even try. It's
I didn't get time to invite anybody.
Yeah, I didn't get time to invite anyone.
Just note to everybody, that was not effective.
No.
But the effective thing that I did do in both I have 2 major cases like that. But in both cases, they weren't the only team member that I was depending on, and so in both cases, even though it was pretty dramatic no show, it's still I had combined it with other activities, so it wasn't a complete.
Yeah, but I also think though that to your point also, another way to get butts in seats is you have multiple people inviting.
Right.
So, like when you're hosting a class, get multiple people inviting to the class. So if you can find, if you have people, especially on your team, who are inviting so that everyone's bringing, getting people to the class, bringing somebody, then it puts butts in seats.
Right. This is actually a key, the word multiple. So like one of Heidi's touch points was to make sure that she had multiple touch points to invite somebody. And then the other key, and I've read this in other books too, just like you said, multiple people inviting to the same class.
Right. So you're inviting the same people multiple times.
Right.
And you're having multiple people do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right. We got David Ellis has his hand up. Go ahead, David.
I actually raised my hand right before you guys started talking. But it's really interesting because what I was going to say is, mirrors a lot of what you just mentioned. But I might say it a little bit differently because I just got off of a mentoring call with a group and we were talking about this similarly. And one of the things I shared with them is I shared this situation where I had somebody call me wanting to sell me car insurance. And I still have the same car insurance, the same agent as when I lived in Idaho. And we've been down here for 2.5 years now. So it's probably a good idea for me to listen to the guy. And I actually legitimately was interested in it. But every time he called, it just was at the wrong time. And so I told him, I said, hey, don't give up on it. I am interested. Well, say he called 2 or 3 times and then nothing. And then he just quit calling. And I think sometimes it made me really reflect on where we're at with that. And we're really the same thing as it. He maybe just needed one more, and I probably would have, because was legitimately interested. So I ended up actually calling him back eventually. But the whole idea behind that is it's timing. It's timing for everyone. So if you can do things to help adjust the timing, and that's really what you guys were just talking about with when you make an invitation and you follow up like with the texting, right? You invite them a week before, and then you follow up a few days before. Just, hey, I'm excited. By the way, there's going to be a door prize. I don't know if I mentioned that. Can't wait to see you on Thursday. And then the day of, 4 hours before, like you said, excited to see you guys here. Don't forget, if you bring a friend, you get a free oil. Little things like that just it helps to improve the timing, because other things will come up. Other things always come up, and so it's a matter of how committed are they to it, and the timing of other things that could get in the way, which lends to the whole idea of sampling and I want to bring this in a different direction, because there's also something that happens when you sample people. Another principle or another law that's being leveraged there, and it's the law of reciprocation. When you give someone something, or when you even I love what you said about Heidi going over to their house and giving an invitation, say, hey, I want you to experience what you're gonna have there, and give them a drop of breathe that in and see what that does. This is what we're gonna talk about. Get excited. But the other part of that is like I said, it's the law of reciprocation. When you do something for someone, they are much more likely to be invested in returning that. And so if it's just merely, that's why people don't understand, well, I invited 150 people on Facebook. I don't know why anybody didn't show up. Well, it's because you didn't do anything.
Right.
They didn't feel any kind of reciprocation or need to reciprocate.
Right.
Because you didn't, it was simple for you. You didn't go out of your way to call them. You didn't go out of your way to make them feel like you really wanted them there. They were just one of 150 people that happened to scroll through and see your invite. Right? But when you do something, if you really want to put butts in the seats, you have to make that person feel that it's important that they're there, and that it's important to you that they're there, and it's important to you that they recognize the benefits that they're going to get. And so sampling, it just touches it. The more times you touch, that's what to your point, the more times you touch, the more bound into this reciprocation concept they are. That they want to give back, so that when that time comes and they've got those little things that come up that they always do, right? There's always something that creates a good excuse for somebody if they really aren't committed to being there. And so the more things you can do to make that a personal invitation, the more likely they are to be there. And they can be simple. That could sound overwhelming, but it's really not. Those text messages before, that's what it is. It's oh, she just thought of me. That's really cool. I'm going to try and be there. Or the little sample, giving out a sample. And I love what you said. It doesn't have to be about, solving their Crohn's disease, right? It could be just, hey, I want to experience this breathe oil because this is what we're going to talk about. So something like that. But the whole idea being, to bring this back to micro view or macro view, it's two things. It's timing and helping to adjust that timing, and the law of reciprocation, where you have to invest something if you expect them to invest something. If you expect them to come and give an hour of their time or an evening of their life, just feel like you've got to be willing to do something to earn that. And that's where those little things become huge things when it comes to getting a commitment to have people actually show.
Yeah. So I think we can talk a little bit about like what do you say when you invite someone? What do you actually put on what do you text them? What does the follow-up email or the text message say? Those might be some pretty valuable conversations as well. If you have some ideas on that, that'd be great. Jacqueline has her hand raised. Jacqueline?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on a Bluetooth and I wasn't sure how well it was working. So this is something that I'm going to say something that's going to kind of bother people, but I found myself trying to reach out to more people rather than just really nurturing a few people. Does that make sense? So one of the things, I know this was done at leadership and it can be very effective, the text blitzing. But this is what I've noticed, like, it's just exactly what David Ellis said. Like, people want personal contact. So a text is great, but like, what I always try to do is call people and a couple times a day, like maybe try them in the morning, then try them in the evening. If at that point they don't answer, a lot of people don't answer phones nowadays. They just like to screen their calls, and even I'm that way to a point. So I'll leave a message, like a thoughtful message, telling them why I've called, and then telling them that I'm going to text them with an invite to a class, which I've already explained to them that I'm inviting them to. And then following up, they will answer texts a lot of times. But if you can get them on the phone, that is so important. Like, just mass texting people, I actually think it's a really good way of turning off some people that would actually have been really interested if you'd had a personal conversation with them first. So knowing that, like, texting is like an appropriate way to follow up with people who've maybe been to a class or to set up like the membership overview. But conversations like that is how you get people interested. Like, you need to tell them about it. You need to talk to them about it. A lot of people don't realize they'd be interested. They're not dying for an essential oil class. Like, you have to plant that seed within them, and that generally takes a conversation. So if you can even, once you've tried to call them, if you've tried several times, you can't get a hold of them, and then you leave a really thoughtful message that you really thought about. Like, you might even write it out a little bit so you make sure that you go over what you want. And then you send that follow-up text, send a follow-up email, and really try to have personal contact. I would rather contact less people and have it very personal and thoughtful and, just what they need to hear than try to talk to massive amounts of people. It's when you get personal that people are interested. Most people come to classes, sorry to say, out of kind of a feeling of obligation. So if you spend all that time, you've talked from your heart, you've thought about certain conditions maybe that you want to help enhance their health and wellness with, and then you bring over that sample, you're not touching a ton of people, but the people you are really going to come. Like, I can get almost anyone to a class if they're interested, but it does take some time. And that's why, especially, and I think when you're first starting, you're just inviting everyone, but at this point, I have to be pretty picky about my time that I spend. So when I first started, I was very personal too. Like, I tried to phone call every person that, when I was starting, and you really make that big push and you're trying to get your whole warm market and everything. I mean, it took some significant time, but even now, like, now that my time is divided between team support and, planning monthly trainings and blah, 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 traveling to support teams, like, if I'm going to talk to someone, I'm going to make it really, like, I'm going to spend the time with them that I need to and get them interested and take all the time. And I'm kind of picky about who I talk to about it at this point, because I realize my time is limited for my new contacts. And so I'm going to make sure they don't fall through. And I just know that there's a lady that went big, and she has just launched another business like a month before. And then when doTERRA came into her life, she couldn't launch it because she had just launched another business. She's like, this would be so lame if I launched another business. So she was forced to call people individually. She made silver in 4 months. So it's personal contact.
Yeah. So
Can I add some to that, Seth?
yeah.
Because Jacqueline is always right, but especially I want to highlight something here too. Is when you make it more personal and you add that, it's so much more effective. But you have to recognize, like she just mentioned with this last gal, everybody has varying levels of trust with people, and so when you've got a really good friend, like your invitation to them is going to be different than a cold contact or somebody that you just met at a craft fair, right? And you have to recognize that if it really is a number of touches, then you just have to be a little bit more patient with those that are colder contacts. So we've got people in our organization that are really, they're out there and they're really generating a lot of new contacts and new leads in a lot of our different teams. We had several booths that went on this weekend, and I just it's so important to understand that this process, you can't shortcut the process. We are in a relationship business. This is a relationship business. People buy, like Jacqueline said, sometimes obligation. I like to refer to as reciprocation, but that's what it is, right? Where they come because you invited them and they feel obligated because you made them feel good because you thought enough of them and you built them up enough to be like, I thought of you. I wanted you to be here. I know this is going to be good for you. But the cold talks, understand that cold contacts just need more time or need more touches. And so it's that consistency. If you've got somebody that you just met on the street or at the park and you invite them to your class, don't be shocked when they don't show up the very first time because they don't really know you. They don't know as much. And so sometimes they go, hey, you know what? Let me just swing by and get you a sample. Let me bring you let me, and just create those additional touches that then all of a sudden they're much more likely to come to a class because you've nurtured that. And that's what Jacqueline's talking about. When she says she will get anybody she decides she wants to that has an interest, she will get them at a class. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is the belief and the confidence that comes behind what you say. It's not always, we can give you scripts and we can give you all kinds of, this is what you say, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you say. It really, truly is how you say it. And that's a total cliche, but it is as true today as the first time it was uttered. It doesn't matter what you say, it's how you say it. And when you say it with energy and enthusiasm and excitement, people, it's the FOMO principle, right? The fear of missing out. When you're excited about what you have to offer, when you're excited about this class that's happening in your house, and you're enthusiastic about what's going to be talked about and how much it's going to benefit them, they're going to be there. And if your invitation is coming at the end of I'm having this and I'd love for you to come, and it's a question in your mind as to whether they really will, then it's going to be more difficult for you to actually get them. But when that confidence is there, that just says, hey, this is happening. I'm having this class. It's my house. We're learning about essential oils. It's going to be so incredible. We're going to learn what they are. We're going to learn how to apply them, and we're going to teach you how to empower yourself to find answers to help better and improve your health and wellness. And it's all natural. It's so much fun. It's exciting. I would love for you to be there. It's going to be Thursday at 6 o'clock. Can I count on you? It just comes across differently when you have that enthusiasm, that excitement, and they feel it. They don't want to miss out. And then when you follow up correctly, they feel that reciprocation, that obligation, whatever it is. They want to be there, and so they will be more likely to push those things aside that could get in the way. And if you're not getting people at your classes and you're not getting people at your through your invites, it's a matter of taking a look at how you're saying it. And is it about you? Is it, hey, I need to fill up this class and I need to get you there because I need to fill it up? Or is it truly, an invitation based off of you wanting them to understand what it is you offer?
Yeah, I've actually listened to some team members before that were having difficulty inviting, and then I'll ask them, what exactly are you saying? And then when they repeat it back to me, oftentimes I'll find that they're disinviting people in their language, using apologetic language and different things like, it's okay if you don't have time, or it's not that important, or, and so I listened to one gal that was saying, I can't get nobody to attend. And when I listened to her, I go, do you realize what you're saying? And she goes, no. I go, well, you're telling people to not respond to you. And so it's just interesting. Languaging is really important in that. And the passion that David's talking about, absolutely. If I've actually been in meetings before where people have looked at me like in amazement, and then I will stop for a minute and say, "What's up?" And one gal goes, "I've just never been in a room with somebody that actually had so much passion for their product before." And sort of that, but passion is a huge factor.
I think that's true. I mean, I'm thinking of, I shared this experience a while ago, but the couple out in Australia, where that lady described her love for the oils, and I mean, it was so
genuine and authentic,
genuine and authentic,
and
that
passionate.
You're like, yeah. I mean, I was like, I want to buy whatever she's selling, I'm buying, because she believes it 100%, and that starts in the invitation.
Right.
Like if you're saying, when you're calling people and you're devaluing the presentation before it's even happened.
Right.
It's okay if you don't come. It's like, no,
I understand you got family
you
things,
need
or...
to see this. Oh, so, well, I've got family in town. We'll bring them too. Right. You know what I mean? It's like everyone needs to see this. And I think that really there comes a point where when you feel obligated, we talked about people feeling obligated to come, when you feel obligated to share.
Right. Well, I remember you sharing a story with me before in a previous network marketing company of where the person that invited you to the event made it such a priority in what he communicated to you that you left your family event and actually went to it.
Oh yeah.
And because he kept calling up, Seth, you have to be there.
You have
just
to come.
have to be there.
I mean, and I told him no over and over. And dude, let me just give you an idea of how powerful this was. I'm living in Provo, Utah. He's telling me to go to Prim, Nevada, which is 6 hours away, 7, something like that. I had a family reunion in Shelley, Idaho, which was 4 hours north of Provo. He convinced us to drive down, find a babysitter in St. George on the way there, watch a flippin' thing for a couple of hours, and then turn around and drive the 10 hours.
And you guys didn't hardly have the money for
We didn't have anything. We were poor college students. And we freaking did that because he was convinced that if I was there, it would change my life forever. And I was like, well, maybe I should go. And I mean, we still look back at that and just go, we drove 6 hours one way and 10 hours back.
Right. On no budget.
On no budget. It's just insane what happened, but it's because he had passion.
Right, and the inviter believed what he
and he
saying.
Believed that if we went, it would change our lives.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, I'll go.
Right.
And you want to know something funny? This is oh my gosh, I'm actually putting this, the speaker was Orrin Woodward.
Oh yeah.
Who, if you guys know, he's like one of the main mastermind speakers for all of network marketing.
Right.
And he taught me in that presentation the concept of tap rooting. That's so funny. It actually did change my life just 20 years later.
Right, because we listened to Orrin again.
He told the truth.
Yeah, we talked about tap rooting at the Texas Mastermind when we went there.
Yeah, and he was still talking about it. Yeah. He was still talking.
It changed your life again.
It changed your life again.
Oh, that's all right. Alonto Mangadog has his hand up.
Alonto.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so what I want to share is, I guess, two-sided. So there's a part that we play when it comes to our invitation and kind of the aspect that we've been talking about, like the type of energy that you have, the enthusiasm, and also the modality of the communication that you have. So with the kind of different levels of communication, from text message to email to a phone call to FaceTime, face-to-face, and at the highest level, like over a meal, right? Being able to communicate the message in a way that the other person receives it from your point of view. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then the other part of it is what is the responsibility or enticing the other individual to make that movement from their end. So there's two aspects of that, and that's the idea of motivation and the ability. So taking your example of driving from like Idaho to Nevada, right? There was a huge kind of intense way of how he communicated the message that you felt a very high kind of motivation to show up at that meeting. Even though it was hard to do, the motivation was high enough for you to take that action and to go forth and show up. And what's really amazing is like studying like habits right now is the things that are highly motivational. Even though if it's hard to do, you would do it because of the value or the need that you have when it comes to taking that action. But really where the magic happens is in the baby steps, right? And you don't need very high motivation to actually take action at these points where the motivation is low, but the ability becomes it's easy for you to do, right? There is motivation there, but it made it so easy, and there's a trigger that actually leads you to commit and take that action or to repeat that behavior. So with the things that we've been doing, and I've kind of found like this to be like at least my experience of getting people to show up to a class is to really put a high importance so that they know the value of like the class, they know the value of the membership overview, business overview, trainings, all these things that we want people to show up to, and make it the easiest way possible for them to get there, and putting in trigger points so that they actually take action. So it triggers them to take action.
So what do you mean by trigger points?
So let's take this phone call, for example, right? That every single Wednesday, there's a text message that comes in 15 minutes before the call, which is a very easy thing to do, right? Like all you got to do is open up that text message and you click on the number and you get on the call.
Okay. So, all right. So I'm following you. So we set up the text alert system basically to fill the butts and seats for this call.
Right.
And because it happens 15 minutes and all the information is reinserted right at the timing, so 15 minutes. I think we figured that 15 minutes gave a person time to readjust if they were already engaged in something. Mm-hmm. And then all the information is accessible and immediate. So that's what you're referring to as a trigger point.
Yeah, so you made it very easy to do. So like the ability for them to get on the call is very easy. Mm-hmm. So easy to do. And you've even given importance as far as motivation to the value that the call provides. Right? Like right. You've shared the importance of why would it be important for someone to show up in a call. Right. And if you have that combination of very high motivation and easy access, you get butts and seats.
Right.
You know what? People to show up.
I'm going to reinforce that too, Alonto. What you're saying, the importance of this call. Most people that have advanced significant ranks on our team have attributed it to attending the mastermind call. And most people that are finding their leadership developing in pace with their teams and things like that, are regular religious attendance on the mastermind call. And so I'm establishing importance right now of the value. So if you're on this call and you have a team and your team is not on the call, but you want that team to advance, well, now you know that we need multiple points of people inviting to the same event, right? And now you understand, hopefully, the motivation of why this call would be valuable or why they need to attend. So if you have a team, for example, you should be texting them prior to this call as well. We have the text alert system, but sometimes it's different when it's your personal leader, for example.
I'm sending out personal. You'll see me sometimes on when these things are being recorded.
Right.
I mean, even while the call's going on, I'm asking people to come.
Right.
Because it's important. But even as we're listening to this call, I'm like, when have I actually called someone up and said, hey, it'd be really important for you to be on this call? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I think ultimately what we're hearing over and over and over again is the importance of the relationship. And the relationship and what you value, they value. And so if you put a high degree of value on the class that you're about to teach, if you place a high degree of value on a mastermind call or a monthly training or whatever event you're doing, when you place that amount of value and then you communicate it multiple times to the people that you are trying to have come to that, and that your motivation is out of obligation to them. You're trying to bless their lives. You're trying to help them.
Right.
And if they feel that, then they reciprocate and they come, they show up. And I think that, how many times do you hear people say stuff like the fake dream of network marketing is hey, you don't even have to talk to anybody, and it's like all you got to do is just tell people on the internet and they all come. And there's all these people that talk about, we have lead management programs where people from all over the world are typing in essential oils and we're going to give you those leads and you can pay us for those leads and all this. It's like, but in the end,
there's no relationship.
You have to call them up, create a relationship through multiple connections, and get them to show up, no matter what. No matter what.
Right. Yeah. There's no way around it.
Right.
People have been trying for a century to bypass this process, and it just and those that finally embrace, hey, look, you've really got to develop relationships and talk to people, are the ones that succeed.
Especially when doTERRA chooses a compensation plan to market their product, because it takes relationships to market this product.
Right. And education and conversations.
Exactly. And all that's right. So the education, the conversation, and all that comes from the relationship that's there. Right. So then when people, they go, well, I'm going to build my doTERRA business without speaking to any of my warm market. That's fine. Just realize that you've got to turn your cold market into a warm market.
Right. And that's the key right there.
Right.
Cold market has to be brought into a warm market.
Right.
Status.
Through multiple contacts.
Right.
And so when you're sitting here looking at you're going, or you might want to take advantage of
right. And
the relationships you've been fostering for years.
Right. And this is why people are breaking down when they think they're inviting, because they do mass invitations, whether it's a Facebook post or a other type of thing, where they're mass communicating without developing that warm market. And ultimately it comes down to that one step. Your leadership isn't going to develop inside your team if you don't foster deep relationships. People become leaders and builders because they're friends with you.
This reminds me of the mass communication without any connection. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of that awesome song. By the way, one of the greatest songs of all time, but it's The Sound of Silence.
Uh-huh.
And Disturbed just came out with an amazing. I'm telling everybody, I value this song. Like I listen to it a lot.
We play it full blast.
But one of the things it says is people talking without speaking.
Uh-huh.
People hearing without listening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that's exactly right. I mean, it's like you can communicate in ways that people hear but don't listen.
Right.
And you can talk without speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, it's about the real genuine communication of you communicating the value of an event to a person and them hearing that.
Right. And that brings up, like when Jacqueline was talking earlier about people not answering the phone nowadays. And that's because, and we all do this, and I do this a lot, but I prioritize the value of what I think the relationship or the call is based on what's coming in.
Which is why I think nowadays I have people before they even call me, they'll send me a text and say, "Hey, is there a time I could call you?"
Right.
And it's because they're trying to get me to answer the phone when they call. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? And it's like, "Hey, if I called you in the next little while, are you available?" And it's like they know I'm going to get that text and they know I'll respond.
Right. And think how great a setup that is. When is a
Right.
great time to contact you as a text message before you try to make the phone call?
Mm-hmm.
And I use that a lot, and I realize that when people contact me with text asking for a conversation, that it's a lot easier for me to say, okay, yeah, I can talk
And you
now,
can tell
or-
that they value the conversation you're about to have. It's
right,
not
right,
a
that
light
they're
thing.
pre-thinking it and things
Yeah.
like that. And so especially the larger you get, the more priorities you have to put on specific types of things. And I think one other point that I think you started to illustrate, which is really important, is there's the two sides of this. There's the passion of the inviter, which includes your level of belief in what you're offering. And then there's the tactics, which are the physical scripts. What do you say? That kind of thing. How do you say it? What mode or vehicle do you use to say it in? Whether it's text messaging, email, in person, all these types of things. But I would say that the weight is on the passion of the inviter, meaning that you put passion on fire, and suddenly the importance is elevated among their sphere of influence.
Yeah.
But you put
You
tactics.
can butcher the script basically
Right,
with high passion.
right.
It
You don't
doesn't
even have
matter.
to hardly know the script. That's why I'm just like, if somebody's on fire, I just step out of the way. You know, it's like, get out of their way, because I don't want them to get in their head about what they're supposed to say. And sometimes the less detailed the scripts are, or things like that, the more effective people are, because then they tend to be authentic and they tend to let their passion drive the invitation rather than the tactical steps.
So wouldn't you say that like scripts and tactics, what it really accomplishes is the people who, when they don't have that information, they're crippled by fear.
Right.
And
right.
so when they're calling people, there is no passion. There's just fear.
Right.
Fear of messing up. And so then when you provide them with the tactics in the script, they no longer fear it, and then they can turn back to their passion.
Right, right. And so the scripts are the tactical step by step is just a framework to get you started so that you can let your passion come through.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. All right, so we got Angie Archer.
And hey, Rod.
Yeah, go ahead. Alonto, was that Alonto?
I actually wanted to share another concept, and really it ties into kind of the idea of striking when the iron is hot, right? So that when you say like it takes multiple points of contact to gain the commitment, I love chaining and sequencing all the things that I do that leads me to the next step, that leads me to a commitment to the next step. So when I'm sharing like the oils, right, and I'm opening the bottle and I'm kind of going through and giving them that experience, and when I offer a class, I make sure that they have a commitment when it comes to that, either putting it in a calendar or they're waiting for like a phone call that I'm gonna do with them, something of that nature that sets up the next meeting, that sets up the next kind of interaction that we're gonna have, so that they already have that at the forefront. They already have that looking forward to it and are excited to attend that event.
Right.
And it's everything that I do, from the class to the membership overview, to the business overview, to the phone calls, to convention, all these things that are amazing events or amazing presentations that go on that we do is set up by the previous interaction, by the previous kind of point of contact to develop the relationship further. Because if you try to recreate like that passion, if you try to kind of try to call a person back that you've invited to a class, it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be like say like you teach someone a class and they go back and or they have all this like excitement. It's like, yeah, I'm really excited. I want to sign up, and you don't currently sign them up right there and then when they were excited. You're going to lose that because of the law of diminishing intent. And that's kind of the same thing that I do coming from a previous point of contact, a previous interaction, to make sure that I set up the next one so it goes as well, if not better, than the previous.
Excellent. You know, I've read that several times too in a lot of success books about events are so important that you want to make sure that you're inviting to the next event at each event. So every time you have an interaction, and we've set the system up this way so that when you're at the class, for example, and they enroll, the class, you're inviting them to enroll and become part of the community, and then you're immediately inviting them to the membership overview, which invites them to the business overview, which invites them to the quick start guide, right? And so we've kind of set a systematic way of events that should be occurring in your interactions with your prospects that goes from class to enrollment to member overview to business overview to quick start guide to boot camp, you know, and then, you know,
the Leadership
Academy. And so we have kind of an event sequence that's built in for this very reason. But this also brings up another point of effective class management and effective event management, and that is that you have to be planned far enough in advance that you actually have time for the messaging to get out, for the invitations to take place. So it's not very effective to say, hey, let's put together a class for tomorrow. You know, is not as effective as, hey, let's set up a class sequence next month and let's have them every Wednesday and Thursday morning and afternoon alternate, and we'll spend this month letting people know about that.
Which, by the way, actually, I have found that if you're in, like, it's good to let them know, but the invitations need to be happening about a week prior.
Right. If at least a minimum, I would say.
Well, I would say, but if it's too far prior, then they forget about it by the time it comes around.
Right. Oh, yeah, for a class. But I have noticed for
major events,
it's a 3-week minimum for.
Yeah, you're constantly promoting that, like the Edge Global Summit or the Global Conference.
We're shooting out almost half a year.
Half a year in advance.
Right.
Yeah. Angie Archibald, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, actually, I'm really glad you're talking about this.
Well, it was your idea, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you had a.
In fact, let's give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
Thanks to this topic is thanks to Angie Archibald.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so I have a comment, and then I've got a question. I want us to dive in on a question I have. But one of the thoughts I've had on this call is thinking about classes that we've scheduled in the past, and ones that were successful and ones that weren't. And there's a couple of things I feel like that make them less successful. Number one would be if we throw a class on the calendar because we feel like we're supposed to, but we don't have a goal for our team or our volume or our rank or something. If we don't have a goal written down for this month or this week, then we're really good at accidentally not inviting enough people or sort of half inviting people so that the class will cancel. I've totally done that. Like, so really, I feel like the success of getting butts in seats a lot of times depends on what your goals are and what your why is, and if you're really engaged in it, because that will determine the connections that you form with people and the intensity or the authenticity at which you invite people. And it has all the difference in the world, right? So anyway, that's one point that keeps coming to my mind as I'm listening to you guys. But I wanted to ask for your thoughts on something that Alonto said. I love it when Alonto talks because if I really listen, I get tons of good content out of his principles. And if I'm just like grazing on what's going on, sometimes I don't get it. Because the call last week where you guys said we shouldn't multitask as much, that's totally me. So anyway, but one of the things Alonso said was make lots of trigger points. So it's really easy for people to come or to buy in to your offer. And I thought about that in the context of a class. And in my mind, I started filling in details like, okay, what makes it easy to come to a class? It's easy if there's food at the class. It's easy if it's at the same time every week and everybody always knows when it is. It's easy if it's at a location that's really like kind of central to the community. and other things like that. But then if you go too far with it, oh, and we're also giving away this for free for anybody who comes. Ooh, that's fun. That's easy. Okay. Oh, and we're raffling off this for people who are on time. Okay. And we're giving these incentives to people who enroll tonight. Like, you could go really far in that direction of creating like massive parties every week. So there's like this tipping point, I feel like where should we be? What's the balance for effective inviting and class getting butts in seats and then like overdoing it? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do know what you mean. You know, I'm a minimalist personally, and I don't think that I think I take the exact opposite approach, and that is that I feel like you showing up and experiencing these oils and learning about them is worth your time to come. Like I feel that way, and so I have never been one to add anything else other than that. Like, you show up, and again, you know, like, I'll notice that people use language that kind of defines their belief in the event that they're about to put on. Well, I don't want to bug people. Mm-hmm. See, if you think you're bugging someone, if you know what I mean?
Well, this reflects in their language immediately.
It does. I mean, it's because like even having to offer, if you come, I'll give you food. Right now, granted, I know people that do show up for the food, so I don't know. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm saying that if they're coming for any other reason than a sincere interest in the oils, then what are we doing? You know what I mean? Because then it becomes more of a party, like a, you know what I mean, like a pampered chef type thing or whatever, where it's like, well, just come, just show up, just be here, just anything, come, you know, and it's like, or you could communicate your passion to the person and let them know that them showing up for the purpose of being there, just for being there, is worth every moment of their time. Right. And it, like, I mean, there's been people that throughout my time in doTERRA who have they've said stuff like, oh, I could never call anyone, and you know, and I'm like, why is that? Well, it's just not me. I can't reach out. I can't do that. I'm not a salesperson, or I don't want to bug people, or whatever. And then I'll say, well, how would you feel towards me if I felt like I was bugging you when I introduced you to the oils, so much that I never even invited you? And I'm like, and they're devastated at the thought of that they had never had the oils in their life. They're like, oh man, that would be terrible. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm glad that I didn't think I was bugging you. You know what I mean? So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you feel like, you know, anyway, I think if you want to have those types of things at your class, like the incentive I always give I've always given to get people to enroll, it has been the book. It's always been that way. And the reason why is because my intent with the class is to empower the individuals in the class to know how to use the oils. And I don't think they're empowered unless they have a book. And so those are the things that I do, but I don't know what I'm definitely open to hear other ideas, because I suck at adding any other types of, you know, reason to be there. I'm like, you know, I'm terrible at it, but I don't know if it's hurting me or not.
All right. Seth?
Yeah.
So this is Jacqueline. I think that one of the things that attracted me the most to doTERRA was how I could literally grab a book, grab a tear sheet, and my oils, and just be off. You know, that was huge to me. So I think that's true, but there is something to say for making things special. And so I guess, you know, I think you do get more people there if you make it special. But having said that, if that is keeping you from doing the class, then just don't worry about it. Just do the class, you know?
Right.
And does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think also...
And it's even just a matter of, like, sometimes I'll just say, hey, like, you know, that text that we do to remind, hey, can't wait to see you here. We're having fruit smoothies, and you know what you do? You take taro greens and you put it in a scoop of water and some frozen fruit, and you blend it up. You know, that's pretty simple. You don't have to make something that's really elaborate. Or come try our trim shake. I mean, how hard is that to make? So you can add little things like that if you feel like that's important, that really take little to no time or preparation.
Well, the other thing is that people who see that might intimidate people who might be interested in the business, because they think every event they put on has to be a major thing. And, and so that can be a little bit of a detriment as well. However, then you have the Sarah and Travis Palmers of the world that, that they love to put on events, and they love to make sure that everyone's fed when they're there, and they love to make, you know what I mean? And I'm sure that that's part of the reason people showed up. I mean, they had packed houses every time that we did a class there, because they did not just...
I liked following Sarah and Travis around. I go to some of their Canada places, and they'd have awesome spreads.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, too, it depends on the event. Like intro classes, membership overviews, business overviews, I think you can keep those pretty simple, especially, of course, the membership overviews, the business overviews. But if you're having like a monthly training, it should be a little special, I think.
Yeah.
Like whether it's like a potluck before where everybody brings food, or like for that once a month, when you become a leader large enough that you get people to come to a monthly event, you need to make it like special, I think.
No, I agree.
To a degree. It doesn't have to be overblown. But, just think of like you just did the elite retreat. I didn't take that much time, but just a few things make it special. And I think that if people are going to take the time out of their day for that, they need to have some form of motivation. But I really don't think you need much motivation at all to go to an intro class, because for certain people just like that. They just love to go and be with people. And for people like me, I love if someone asked me if I want a one-on-one or a class, I'd be like, one-on-one, please. After my kids are in bed, like at 8 o'clock at night, would be perfect. So, you know what I mean? So
I totally know what you mean.
Right.
I just think there are times when you need to make it special, and there's times when making it special actually would push people away from doing the business. And you just have to have a discerning mind concerning what that would be.
Yeah.
Hey, Seth.
Just 1 second, because Melissa Guthrie actually has had her hand raised. So let me go to her and then you.
Hi, thank you, Seth. I was recently listening to an audio program by Jim Rohn, and he was talking in regards to building a network marketing business, and he was talking about the difference between quantity and quality when it comes to putting people in seats at events. And so I would love to get your guys' take or whatnot in that, because I've taught classes. I've had team members that have put together a class, and I go and the room is full. There's like 6 to 8 people, which is full, but 6 to 8 people there, super excited to learn. But because of where they were at, what station of life they were in, or perhaps their background or mindset, we get to the kit, and they are so sticker shocked. You know what I mean? Like, they are like totally disconnecting. And when it comes down to it, they're like, I think I'm just going to buy a bottle of lemon oil. And so it was like, okay, well, yeah, we put butts in the seats, but these people weren't perhaps mentally, emotionally, financially prepared for
A demographic
class.
thing.
And so would it have been better to focus the time and energy on someone who would have been prepared to engage with us, and maybe just have a one-to-one where somebody might have enrolled with, a natural solutions kit. You know what I'm saying? So I would love to get your take or input on that.
I guess.
You're up, dude.
Well, I think if you're taking marketing from so I'm a professional marketer, so my degree and background is in marketing, and when it comes to market, if I'm hired by a company as a marketing consultant, one of the first things I'm going to talk to them about is their ideal customer, and we're going to demographically profile who the ideal customer is. So, for example, when I was marketing manager of a large equipment manufacturer for cattle, we targeted cattle ranches of a certain size, because I knew that the smaller ranches couldn't afford our equipment, and so it had to be a specific type and a specific type of demographic for that specific product. And it did us no good to market cattle equipment to somebody that lived in an apartment with no job. So there are certain things. Now the cool thing, if you take essential oils, the application is pretty much every home, and so then it comes to, I think, demographically understanding who you're presenting to. So for example, our teams in Mexico have to use a different strategy than we use here in the U.S. because the vast majority of the homes
they buy it by the drop.
Right. It's in a different demographic. They have different capabilities, and so we've molded the doTERRA presentation. They need the oils just as much as anyone else, but the way that it's delivered to them is adjusted for that demographic, and for their capabilities and things like that. And so I think Melissa brings up a great point. And I think if you have an understanding of who you're presenting to in advance, those presentations could be very effective as well, especially if the final pitch isn't, oh, but by the way, here's your $2,500 kits, which I think they would be glad to pay if they were coming there to join the business and they knew that was going to save them $1,100 over the course of the year.
Sure.
They'd be excited about that. So I think that Melissa brings up a great point, because certainly I've tapped into groups that anyone can buy a kit, and they can buy any kit that we offer.
Oh yeah, I've done classes in areas where every flipping sign up is a $500 kit.
Right.
And it's just the demographic.
Right.
With that said, I will say that again, it comes down to the value that the people place on the product.
Right.
And if someone values what the essential oils can do for them, they find the money. Everybody has some money, and they just spend it on what they truly value.
Right. I just recognized, bro. It's 102.
It's 102. Hey, David, did you have a last comment you wanted to share? Was that you?
That was me, Alonso.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead, Alonso.
So what I was going to say was going to kind of dovetail, and it also works with Melissa's question, is when you focus on quality, right? Like, so when I was talking about kind of the ways where it was easy for you to do, so like doing something like a one-on-one, because if they're already interested, if they're already kind of wanting to learn more about the oils, and you ask the question, hey, do you have 30 minutes right now that we can go over the basics of essential oils? Would you be open to that? And really kind of do it right there and then. Now you're setting up your next meeting where you're going to have quality people to have show up at the class. Because sometimes, people that show up to the class have no clue or have no idea what the heck is going on when they show up.
Yeah.
But if you have someone that you've kind of nurtured the relationship with, you did a one-on-one previously, and you've shared like the value and the importance of incorporating essential oils into their life, now you have that idea or that person doing the work for you of sharing that value with others, so that when people show up, and I love how Rod says that one-on-ones lead to classes. And that's what that means, so that when you do teach a class, it's a very high-quality class where people know what they're getting into, and people know what the value is of them showing up in the class and what they can kind of take away from it.
Yeah.
That's great. Awesome comments, everyone. I think we do need to close it down because everyone's leaving anyway. So, so great comments. There's many more hands that are up. We apologize that we couldn't get to all of you. There's a lot of you that I would have loved to hear your comments from as well. But maybe it's a topic that we'll continue in future ones. But we'll wish you all a very happy and successful week. If you've enjoyed our videos, be sure to go over to edgesuccess.tv and subscribe to our YouTube channel.